The marble floor felt cold under my feet as I stood frozen in the foyer of the house I'd bought 2 years ago. The house with the wraparound porch and the garden that got perfect afternoon sunlight. The house that cost me my own dream of homeownership. I'd let myself in with my key to drop off groceries, organic vegetables, expensive cuts of meat, the imported coffee Brenda liked. I just transferred money for this month's property taxes. My bank account was lighter by $3,200, but I told myself it was fine. This was family. This was what you did. Then I heard her voice from the living room. She was on speakerphone. Girl, I'm telling you, she showed up again today with more food I didn't even ask for. Brenda's voice was sharp with irritation. Always hovering, always trying to insert herself. Like buying me things makes up for being herself. I should have left. Should have walked right back out that front door. But my feet wouldn't move. What does she want, you think? Her friend's voice crackled through the speaker. Attention. Validation. Who knows? Brenda laughed and the sound made my stomach hurt. She brings nothing but headaches, honestly. Can't hold a conversation without making it awkward. Can't dress right. Can't do anything useful except throw money around. But she pays your bills, right? Well, she should. After everything her father put me through, it's the least she can do. And it's not like she has anything else going on. No husband, no kids, no life. This is probably all she has. The groceries slipped from my hands. A jar of pasta sauce shattered on the marble, deep red spreading across the white stone like blood. Brenda? That you? The voice on the phone asked. I heard movement in the living room. Footsteps coming toward the foyer. I stood there, staring at the broken jar, at the sauce soaking into the bag of expensive vegetables. Brenda appeared in the doorway. She was wearing the designer loungewear I'd bought her for Christmas, her hair freshly done at the salon I'd paid for last week. For a second, just 1 second, something that might have been guilt flickered across her face. Then it was gone. Simone. I didn't know you were coming by. She didn't move to help with the mess. Didn't apologize. Just stood there, phone still in her hand. I brought groceries. My voice sounded strange. Distant. And I paid the property taxes this morning. $3,200. Oh, okay. She shifted her weight. Well, you didn't need to come inside. You could have left them on the porch. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman my father had married in his last year of life. The woman who'd cried at his funeral and whispered to me that she didn't know how she'd survive. The woman I'd promised to help, to take care of, because Dad would have wanted that. I heard what you said. The words came out flat. On the phone. I heard all of it. Brenda's jaw tightened. You were eavesdropping? In my own house? The word surprised me. I'd never called it that before, even though my name was on the purchase agreement, even though I'd signed every document, written every check. It's my house, Brenda corrected, her voice going cold. Your name isn't on the deed. You gave it to me, remember? As a gift. Because you felt guilty about your father. Guilty about what? What did Dad do that I should feel guilty about? He married me and left me with nothing. 5 years of my life, gone. Someone had to step up. The sauce was still spreading across the floor. I watched it reach the edge of a grout line and stop, pooling in the small depression. I should go, I said. Yes, you should. And next time, call first. I walked to the door, my shoes sticking slightly to the floor where the sauce had spread. I didn't look back. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked out into the bright afternoon sunlight and got in my car. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I sat there for 10 minutes, maybe 15, staring at the house. The house with the new roof I'd paid to replace last year when the storm damaged it. The house with the landscaping I maintained because Brenda said she didn't have time. The house with every utility bill, every property tax, every HOA fee in my name and paid from my account. The house where the woman inside had just told her friend I brought nothing but headaches. I drove home to my one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. The apartment I'd lived in for 8 years because I couldn't afford to buy anything while supporting Brenda. The apartment with the broken dishwasher my landlord wouldn't fix and the neighbor who played drums at midnight. I sat on my second-hand couch and opened my banking app. Then I started scrolling. And scrolling. And scrolling. House down payment, $80,000. Closing costs, $12,000. New appliances when she said the ones that came with the house were cheap, $8,000. Property taxes year 1, $11,000. Property taxes year 2, $11,500. Utilities average per month, $450. HOA fees monthly, $200. Repairs and maintenance, $23,000. Her car payment when hers broke down, $18,000 total. Her daughter's college tuition, $40,000 per daughter, $80,000 total. Monthly allowance for groceries and spending, $1,500 for 24 months, $36,000. The numbers kept coming. Doctor bills. Dental work. The cruise she took with her daughters last year. The furniture she said she needed. The new windows. The deck repair. My phone calculator couldn't hold all the numbers. I had to get a pen and paper. I had to write it down to believe it. $412,000. $412,000 in 3 years. I made good money. I was a top performer in pharmaceutical sales, working territories across 3 states, driving thousands of miles yearly, attending conferences, building relationships. I made $95,000 a year before bonuses, and I was good at earning bonuses. But I didn't have $412,000 to spare. Nobody did. That money had come from my savings, from my retirement account. I'd taken the penalties to withdraw early, from skipping vacations, from driving my car until it had 200,000 miles, from eating cheap meals and never buying new clothes and saying no every time my friends asked if I wanted to go somewhere that cost money. That money was supposed to be my house, my future, my security. And the woman I'd given it to had just told someone I brought nothing but headaches. I looked around my small apartment. At the walls I wasn't allowed to paint. At the carpet with stains from the previous tenant. At the window that didn't quite close all the way, letting in a draft every winter. Then I picked up my phone and started making a list of my own. Not of money spent. Of questions I needed answered. Because something Brenda said kept echoing in my mind, after everything her father put me through. Dad had been a good man. A mechanic who worked hard, paid his bills, loved me completely even though he and my mom had divorced when I was young. What had he put Brenda through? What was I supposed to feel guilty about? And why had I never asked before? I pulled out my laptop and opened a browser. I was good at research. It was part of my job, investigating doctors, understanding territories, finding information. I just never thought to investigate my own family. That was about to change. By midnight I had pages of notes. By 2 in the morning I had a plan forming. By sunrise I was still awake, staring at documents I'd found, bank statements I'd printed, text messages I'd scrolled back through. And I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was something else entirely. I was done. 3 years ago I'd been happy. Not perfectly happy. I was 32, single, living in a small apartment, working long hours, but content. I had friends. I had a job I was good at. I had my dad, who I visited every Sunday for dinner and bad television shows we'd watch together, making fun of the plots. Then he met Brenda at a car show. She was selling vintage automobile memorabilia at a booth, and Dad had always loved old cars. He came home that Sunday with her phone number and a smile I hadn't seen since before my mom left. "I think I met someone special, Simmy," he'd said, using the nickname only he called me. I was happy for him. He deserved someone. He'd been alone for 15 years, focused entirely on raising me, working, surviving. If he found someone who made him smile like that, I was all for it. Brenda seemed nice at first. A little quiet around me but warm with Dad. She had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, both in their early 20s. Dad said they were good kids, working their way through community college. 6 months later, he married her. Small ceremony, just family. I was his best man. He said he didn't need anyone else standing up there with him, just his daughter. Brenda's girls were her bridesmaids. We all smiled for photos. I should have paid more attention. Should have noticed how Brenda's daughters never contributed to dinner when we all ate together, how they'd show up and expect Dad to hand them money for gas, or for books. Should have noticed how Brenda always had a new purse, new shoes, new something while Dad's work boots were wearing through. But I was busy with my territory, closing deals, traveling. I figured Dad was happy. He said he was happy. That was enough for me. Then 8 months after the wedding, Dad collapsed at work. Heart attack. Massive. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. The funeral was the worst day of my life. Worse than when my mom left. Worse than anything I'd experienced. Dad was my person. My constant. The one who taught me to change a tire, to negotiate, to stand up for myself, to laugh at stupid jokes. He was 58. He should have had 20 more years. Brenda cried through the whole service. Her daughters held her up. I sat in the front row, alone, feeling like the world had ended. After the funeral, after everyone left, Brenda asked if we could talk. We sat in Dad's living room, their living room now, I guess, and she told me she was in trouble. "Your father handled all the finances," she said, tissues in her hand, eyes red. "I don't know what we're going to do." The house payment is due and I can't afford it on my own. The girls are in school. I don't have a job right now. I was taking care of your father, and before that I was between positions. What about Dad's life insurance? I asked. There isn't any. He canceled it 2 years ago. I don't know why. He said something about premiums being too high. That didn't sound like Dad. He was careful with money. But I was grieving and I didn't think to question it. What about his retirement account? It's gone. He had to cash it out last year for some emergency. He didn't tell me what. None of this made sense. But Brenda was crying and my dad had just died and I couldn't think straight. What do you need? I asked. I don't know. The mortgage is $2,800 a month. I can't pay that. They're going to foreclose. I did the math in my head. I made decent money, but I had my own rent, my own car payment, my own bills. But this was Dad's wife. This was his family now. How much would it take to pay off the house? What? The mortgage? How much is left? She named a number. It was high but not impossible. I had money saved. I'd been planning to put a down payment on a house of my own eventually, but that could wait. Dad would have wanted his wife taken care of. I can pay it off, I said. Let me handle it. Simone, no. That's too much. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Dad would have wanted this. She cried harder and hugged me. I hugged her back, feeling like I was doing the right thing. Feeling like Dad would be proud. The next week, I met with a mortgage broker and arranged to pay off Dad's house. It took most of my savings, $78,000. But the house was paid off. Brenda and her daughters had a secure place to live. Then the property tax bill came. Brenda called me in tears. I can't afford this. I don't have $11,000. They'll put a lien on the house. I paid it. Then the AC broke. $6,000 to replace the entire unit. I paid it. Then her car died. I need a car to get to job interviews, she said. I co-signed a loan and made the payments. $380 a month. Then her daughters needed help with college tuition. Community college had turned into state university and it was expensive. I paid it. Split between both girls, $20,000 per semester. Then the roof leaked during a storm. $15,000 for a full replacement. I paid it. Every time, Brenda cried and thanked me and said she didn't know what she'd do without me. Every time I told myself this was temporary. She'd get on her feet. She'd find a job. Things would get better. But they didn't. The calls kept coming. The bills kept arriving. And I kept paying. My own life got smaller. I stopped going out with friends because I couldn't afford it. I stopped dating because dinners out meant money I didn't have. I drove my car until the check engine light became a permanent fixture. I wore the same work clothes for years, rotating the same 5 outfits. My friends started commenting. Are you okay? You seem stressed. You never come out anymore. I'd make excuses. Work was busy. I was tired. I had plans I couldn't cancel. The truth was I was breaking myself to keep Brenda's family comfortable. And I didn't know how to stop. Because every time I thought about saying no, I'd picture Dad. I'd hear his voice. Family takes care of family, Simi. So I kept paying. Kept sacrificing. Kept putting their needs before my own. Until yesterday. Until I stood in that foyer and heard Brenda tell someone I brought nothing but headaches. Until I realized that no amount of money would ever be enough. No amount of sacrifice would ever make her see me as family. I was just a source of funds. A guilt-ridden daughter who couldn't say no. But I was saying no now. Sitting in my apartment at sunrise looking at 3 years of financial records, I felt something break free inside me. It wasn't anger exactly. It was clarity. I'd been living half a life, pouring everything I had into people who didn't appreciate it, didn't value me. I'd put my own dreams on hold, convinced myself it was noble, necessary, right? It wasn't. It was just sad. I picked up my phone and opened my email. There was a message from 2 months ago that I'd archived without responding. A recruiter from a pharmaceutical company in Atlanta, offering me a director position. More responsibility, more territory, better benefits. And a salary of $180,000. I turned it down because it would mean moving. It would mean being too far away to help Brenda when she needed something. It would mean leaving Dad's memory behind. But Dad's memory wasn't in Brenda's house. It wasn't in the bills I paid or the money I spent. It was in the lessons he taught me. And one of those lessons was knowing my worth. I hit reply on the recruiter's email. Is this position still available? I'd like to discuss it further. The response came in 20 minutes. Absolutely. When can you interview? I looked around my small apartment. at the life I'd been living, at the person I'd become. How about tomorrow? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a notebook, and 3 years of bank statements printed out. The pages covered the entire table surface, overlapping, chronicled in highlighter colors I'd assigned to different categories. Yellow for property expenses, pink for utilities, green for personal spending, Brenda's allowance, her daughter's money, blue for big purchases. There was a lot of blue. The sun rose while I was creating a spreadsheet. I'd always been organized, it was necessary in sales, tracking clients and territories, but this was different. This was building a case. Against my own family. Against myself, really, for letting it happen. My phone rang at 7 in the morning. Brenda. I stared at her name on the screen, watching it light up, watching it go dark. She called again 5 minutes later. Then a text. Did you mean to skip this month's payment? The utility company called. Said the account is past due. I'd set everything to automatic payment years ago. Taken that worry off Brenda's shoulders, she'd said. Made it easier for everyone. But last night, after writing that email to the recruiter, I'd logged into every account and canceled every automatic payment. The mortgage was paid off, that couldn't be undone. But everything else stopped. I didn't respond to the text. Another text came through, this time from one of her daughters, Natasha. Hey Simone, mom's freaking out about bills. Can you call her? I turned off my phone and went back to my spreadsheet. By noon I had everything organized. A timeline. Every payment, every date, every amount. I also had something else. A growing list of questions that didn't have answers. Why had Dad canceled his life insurance? Why had he cashed out his retirement account? What emergency had required that? I called Dad's former employer, the auto shop where he'd worked for 30 years. Hi, this is Simone Fletcher, Roy Fletcher's daughter. I'm trying to sort out some of his financial records, and I had a question about his retirement account. The woman in HR was sympathetic. Oh honey, I'm so sorry for your loss. Roy was a good man. What do you need to know? Did he cash out his retirement account before he died? Papers rustled on the other end. Let me check. No, actually, his 401k was still active when he passed. About $87,000 in it. That should have gone to his beneficiary. My hand tightened on the phone. Who was the beneficiary? Let me see. It says here Brenda Fletcher. His spouse. She would have received that automatically after his death. She definitely received it? Yes, I processed that paperwork myself. Sent her the forms, she filled them out, the money was transferred about 3 weeks after the funeral. Is there a problem? No. No problem. Thank you. I hung up and stared at my notes. Brenda said the retirement account was gone. She said Dad had cashed it out for an emergency. But he hadn't. He'd left her $87,000 and she'd never mentioned it. I called the life insurance company next. It took 20 minutes of holding and transferring, but finally I got an answer. Mr. Fletcher's policy was active at the time of his death, the agent said. A $100,000 term policy. The beneficiary was listed as Simone Fletcher. You, I'm assuming? The room tilted. What? The death benefit was paid out to Simone Fletcher at the address on file. Let me see. The check was mailed about a month after we received the death certificate. I never received a check. It was mailed to 2847 Oakmont Drive. Is that your current address? That was Dad's address. The house I'd paid off. Where Brenda lived. No, I said slowly. That's not my address. Oh, well, the check was cashed. I can see it cleared about 6 weeks after Mr. Fletcher's death. Can you tell me what bank it was cashed at? I'm not sure I can give out that information. Someone forged my signature and stole my inheritance. I need to know where that check was cashed. Silence. Then, let me get my supervisor. It took an hour, but they gave me the information. The check had been deposited at a local credit union branch. Into an account under the name Brenda Fletcher. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process it. Brenda had gotten Dad's retirement account. Brenda had somehow gotten my life insurance check, forged my signature, deposited it in her own account. That was $187,000 that she'd claimed didn't exist. Money that could have paid for everything she'd asked me to cover. Money that meant she never needed to ask me for a single dollar. My phone buzzed. I turned it back on without thinking. A text from Brenda. Simone, this isn't funny. The electric is going to get shut off. I need you to pay the bill today. I looked at that text for a long time. Then I opened a new browser window and searched for private investigators in my area. The first 3 I called were too expensive or too busy. The fourth answered on the second ring. Mitchell Investigations, this is Terrence. I need someone to do a background check, I said. Financial records, property records, anything you can find. Who's the subject? My stepmother. He didn't ask why. We scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. Terrence Mitchell's office was in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a taco shop. Inside it was neat and professional despite the location. He was maybe 50, wearing a button-down shirt and jeans, with sharp eyes that assessed me as I walked in. Tell me what you need, he said, gesturing to a chair. I told him everything. The money I'd spent. The lies about Dad's insurance and retirement. The house, the bills, the constant requests for more. He took notes, asked questions, didn't judge. What are you hoping to find? He asked when I finished. I don't know. The truth, I guess. I need to know if there's more I don't know about. There's always more. He leaned back in his chair. In my experience, when someone lies about one thing, they're lying about others. Give me 3 days. I'll find what there is to find. How much? He named a price. It was high but not impossible. And after spending over $400,000 on Brenda, what was another $2,000 if it gave me answers? I paid the retainer and left. For the next 3 days I went through the motions. I worked, made sales calls, attended a conference. But my mind was somewhere else, waiting for Terrence to call. Brenda called and texted constantly. The utilities were shut off now, electric first, then water. She was threatening to call the police, to sue me, to tell everyone what a terrible person I was. Her daughters left voicemails calling me selfish, ungrateful, cruel. I saved every message. Documented every call. I had a feeling I might need them. On the third day Terrence called. I found some things. You should come in. His office was the same, but the manila folder on his desk was thick. He opened it as I sat down. Okay, this is interesting, he said. Your stepmother owns a rental property in Florida. A condo she inherited from her mother 5 years ago. She's been renting it out for $2,100 a month. No mortgage on it. That's about $25,000 a year in income she never mentioned. What else? The house you bought for her? She's been renting out the basement apartment. Separate entrance, full kitchen, bathroom. She's charging $2,000 a month. Has been for the past 18 months. That's $36,000 she's collected while you were paying all her bills. My hands clenched in my lap. There's more, Terrence said. Your father left her as beneficiary on his Social Security. She's been collecting survivor benefits. About $1,900 a month. That's $22,800 a year. I did the math in my head. Between the rental properties and Social Security, Brenda had been making roughly $84,000 a year. Tax-free mostly, since the Social Security was survivor benefits and she probably wasn't reporting the basement rental. She told me she had no income, I said. My voice sounded hollow. She lied. Terrence slid more papers across the desk. Bank statements I was able to access through public records. She's got about $140,000 in savings. And there's this. He pulled out another document. She recently met with a real estate attorney. I have a contact who works in that office. Brenda is planning to transfer the house into her daughter's names. Joint ownership. Essentially removing you from any claim to it, since you bought it as a gift. Can she do that? It's in her name. She can do whatever she wants with it. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Anything else? One more thing. Those college tuition payments you've been making? Her daughters both have full scholarships. Academic and need-based. The university confirmed it. They're not paying tuition. Haven't been for 2 years. Then where did that money go? Based on their social media and credit card records I could access? Vacations. Clothes. Cars. One of them just bought a brand new SUV. Cash. I sat there in that office, listening to the hum of the air conditioner, trying to process what I was hearing. Everything had been a lie. Every single thing. The struggling widow's story. The desperate need for help. The gratitude that I thought I'd seen. All lies. Brenda had money. Brenda had income. Brenda's daughters didn't need my help with college. They'd all just decided I was an easy target. A guilt-ridden daughter who couldn't say no. And they'd been right. For 3 years they'd been absolutely right. What do you want to do with this information? Terrence asked quietly. I looked at the folder. At the proof of everything I'd suspected and worse things I hadn't imagined. I want to talk to a lawyer, I said. And then I want to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they are. The lawyer's name was Patricia Odoms, and her office was in a downtown high-rise with a view of the river. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and glasses that sat low on her nose. She read through Terrence's report while I sat across from her desk, watching the city lights blink on as evening fell. "This is fraud," she said finally, looking up. "Multiple instances. The forged life insurance check is the biggest one. That's a felony. The failure to disclose income while accepting financial support could be considered fraudulent inducement. And if she was lying about her daughter's tuition to get money from you under false pretenses, that's theft by deception. Can I get my money back?" Patricia's expression shifted, becoming more careful. "That's complicated. You gave her most of this money willingly as gifts. The house, the payments, you never had a contract, never created a loan agreement. Legally, those were gifts, and gifts can't be reclaimed just because the recipient turned out to be ungrateful or even dishonest." My heart sank. "So she just gets away with it?" "I didn't say that. The life insurance money is different. That was legally yours. She forged your signature and deposited your check. That's a clear crime. You can report it to the police, press charges, potentially recover that money plus damages. The retirement account is murkier. That was legitimately left to her as the beneficiary, but the fact that she lied to you about it while asking for money might give us an angle." "What kind of angle?" "Fraudulent inducement. If we can prove she knowingly lied about her financial situation to trick you into giving her money, we might be able to make a civil case for repayment. It's not guaranteed, but it's possible. You'd need to file a lawsuit." I thought about that. Court, lawyers, months or years of legal battles. Facing Brenda and her daughters, hearing them defend themselves, watching them try to paint me as the villain. What would that cost? Tens of thousands in legal fees probably. And again, no guarantee you'd win or recover anything. Even if you won a judgment, collecting it is another matter. If she doesn't have assets or income we can attach, a judgment is just paper. She has the house. The one I bought her. Which is in her name. And if she transfers it to her daughters before we can file a lien, it's protected. Florida has strong homestead protections too, so that rental condo might be untouchable. I felt the weight of it all settling on me. Even with proof, even with evidence of lies and theft, the system wasn't built to help me. I'd been too generous, too trusting, and now I'd pay for it. "What about the utilities and bills?" I asked. "Everything's still in my name. Those you can stop paying immediately. They're in your name, you have no obligation to continue. If she wants to keep the utilities on, she'll need to transfer them to her name and set up her own accounts. You might have to formally request the accounts be closed to prevent any future liability, but you're within your rights to stop payment." "And the property taxes?" "Those are attached to the property itself. If they're not paid, the county will eventually put a lien on the house and could force a sale. But that's not your problem. The house is in her name. You have no legal obligation to pay them." "What should I do?" Patricia leaned back in her chair. "That depends on what you want. If you want to pursue criminal charges for the life insurance fraud, I can refer you to a detective I know. If you want to file a civil suit for fraudulent inducement, I can handle that, but it'll be expensive and time-consuming with no guaranteed outcome. Or you can walk away. Stop all payments, block their numbers, move on with your life. That feels like letting them win. Maybe. Or maybe it's recognizing you can't get blood from a stone, and the best revenge is living well." She pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. "Think about it. But while you're thinking, I'd suggest doing a few things. First, document everything. Keep all these records organized and backed up. Second, formally close or transfer any accounts that are in your name related to her household. Third, if you haven't already, check your credit report. Make sure she hasn't opened anything in your name." That thought hadn't even occurred to me. "You think she would?" "People who commit one type of fraud often commit others. Better to check and find nothing than not check and get surprised." I left her office with a sick feeling in my stomach. I'd thought having evidence would feel empowering, would give me options. Instead, I felt more trapped than ever. Trapped by my own generosity, by laws that protected the person who'd taken advantage of me, by a system that made it easier to steal than to recover. But Patricia had been right about one thing. I needed to check my credit. Back at my apartment, I pulled up all 3 credit bureaus and ran my reports. The first 2 were clean, just my own accounts, my own debt. But the third showed something that made my blood run cold. A credit card in my name. Opened 8 months ago. Balance, $18,000. Current status, 60 days past due. I'd never opened this card. Never used it. Never saw a statement. The billing address was Brenda's house. With shaking hands, I called the credit card company. After 20 minutes of verification questions, they pulled up the account. This card was opened online, the representative said. The application came through with your social security number, date of birth, and the billing address on file. I didn't open it. This is fraud. You'll need to file a police report and send us a copy. We can flag the account and start an investigation. Who's been using the card? I can't give you specific details without the police report, but I can tell you the card was used primarily at retail stores, restaurants, and online shopping sites. There are charges from all over the state. Brenda's daughters. Had to be. They'd taken my information, easy to get from tax documents or other papers I'd probably left at the house during one of my visits, and opened an account in my name. Then they'd gone shopping, run up $18,000 in debt, and never paid. I filed a police report that night. Then I called Terrence. I need you to find out if there are any other accounts opened in my name, I said. Check everything. I'll need a few days and another retainer. Bill me? I don't care. I need to know. Over the next week, while waiting for Terrence's report, I started dismantling my connection to Brenda's household. I called every utility company, every service provider. Some I could transfer out of my name immediately. Others required her to open new accounts first. I informed them all that after the current billing cycle, I would no longer be responsible for any charges. The property tax situation was trickier. I met with a county clerk who explained that taxes were assessed to the property owner, which was Brenda. The fact that I'd been paying them was irrelevant. I had no legal obligation to continue. If they went unpaid, the county would eventually place a lien and could force a tax sale, but that could take years. So she could just not pay them and nothing happens? Eventually something happens, the clerk said. But not quickly. The county doesn't want to seize properties. We want people to pay their taxes. There are payment plans, deferments, all sorts of options. But yes, it can take several years before we force a sale. What if I wanted to buy the tax lien? The clerk looked surprised. You can do that. We hold a tax lien auction every year. If a property goes unpaid, investors can bid on the lien. You pay the back taxes plus fees, and you earn interest while the owner works to redeem the property. If they don't redeem it within a certain period, you can potentially foreclose and take ownership. I filed that information away for later. Terrence called on day 6 of his investigation. Found 2 more credit cards in your name. One's maxed out at $15,000, the other has about $8,000 on it. Both past due. And there's something else. Someone tried to open a car loan using your information, but the dealership flagged it as suspicious and denied it. Total damage? About $41,000 in fraudulent debt, plus whatever hits your credit score is taking from the late payments. I felt numb. It was almost funny. I'd given Brenda over $400,000 willingly, and she'd still decided to steal another $40,000 by identity theft. File reports on all of it, I said. Send me everything you have. One more thing, Terrence said. I've been monitoring social media. Brenda's daughters have been posting about you. Calling you selfish, saying you abandoned them, that you're a terrible person. They've got a lot of people convinced you're the villain. Let them talk. Just thought you should know. In case you want to respond. I don't. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Didn't need to defend myself to strangers who only knew Brenda's version of events. That night, I got an email from the Atlanta recruiter. They wanted to make me an offer. Director of Regional Sales. $180,000 base salary, plus commission and bonuses that could push it over $220,000. Relocation assistance. Benefits that included company car and full health coverage. I accepted before I could second-guess myself. Start date, 4 weeks. I had 4 weeks to end this chapter of my life and start a new one. 4 weeks to finalize everything with Brenda and walk away. 4 weeks to stop being the person who gave everything away and become the person who knew her worth. I looked around my small apartment at the life I'd been living, and felt something that had been missing for 3 years. Oh. The criminal complaint was filed on a Monday morning. I sat in a police station for 3 hours, walking a detective through every piece of evidence Terrence had gathered. The forged life insurance check. The fraudulent credit cards. The identity theft. The detective, a tired-looking woman named Angela Reeves, took notes and asked questions. This is pretty clear-cut fraud, she said. The credit cards alone are enough for charges, but the life insurance check is the big one. That's forgery, identity theft, and grand theft. She could face serious time if convicted. Will she be arrested? We'll start with an investigation, contact her, see if she wants to make a statement. If the evidence holds up, and it looks solid, we'll present it to the district attorney. They'll decide whether to file charges. The process can take a few weeks to a few months. What about the money she took from me willingly? The payments I made? That's civil, not criminal. You'd have to sue for that. But this, she tapped the file, this is theft. This we can prosecute. I left the station feeling like I'd done something at least. It wasn't recovery. It wasn't justice yet. But it was a start. That afternoon I had another meeting with Patricia Odoms. She'd been reviewing all of Terrence's findings and had thoughts. The criminal case will help your civil case, she said. If she's convicted of fraud related to the life insurance money, it establishes a pattern of deceptive behavior. That strengthens our argument that she defrauded you regarding the other money as well. But you said I can't get that money back because I gave it as gifts. That's where fraudulent inducement comes in. If we can prove she lied about her financial situation specifically to induce you to give her money, which we can based on these records, then those weren't gifts made freely. They were payments made under false pretenses. It's a gray area, but we have a shot. What would a lawsuit look like? Patricia laid out a timeline. Filing would cost about $5,000 in initial fees. Discovery would take months, with both sides requesting documents and depositions. Trial, if it came to that, could be a year or more away. Total cost, potentially $50,000 or more in legal fees. Recovery, uncertain. Even if we win, she said, collecting is the challenge. She'll claim she spent the money, doesn't have assets, can't pay. We could put a lien on the house, but with homestead protections and the fact that it's her primary residence, actually forcing a sale is difficult. So I could spend $50,000 in years of my life and still end up with nothing? It's possible. That's why I want to be clear about expectations. This isn't a guaranteed win. I sat there processing. Every option seemed designed to cost me more. More money, more time, more emotional energy. Meanwhile, Brenda was living in the house I'd bought, probably still collecting rent from the basement apartment and her Florida condo, probably still getting Social Security benefits. What if I don't sue? I asked. What if I just walk away? Then she keeps everything. The house, the money, all of it. And you have $400,000 in gifts, you'll never recover. But I'd be free. Patricia studied me. That's not a legal question. That's a personal one. Only you can answer whether peace of mind is worth more than money you'll probably never see anyway. I thought about it. Thought about years of legal battles, seeing Brenda and her daughters in court, reliving every moment of manipulation and lies. Thought about the stress, the cost, the uncertainty. Then I thought about my new job in Atlanta. About the life I could build there. About the money I'd save once I stopped paying Brenda's bills. $6,000 a month that could go toward my own future. I want to think about it, I said. Fair enough. But there is one thing we should do regardless. Patricia pulled out a document. We need to formally document that you're ceasing all financial support. A letter to Brenda stating that effective immediately, you are no longer responsible for any bills, payments, or expenses related to her household. It protects you from any claims that you're obligated to continue support. She'll lose her mind. Probably. But it's necessary. Otherwise, she could argue you created an implied contract or obligation through years of payment. This makes it crystal clear that the arrangement is over. I signed the authorization for Patricia to draft the letter. She said she'd have it ready in 2 days and would serve it to Brenda via certified mail. One more thing, Patricia said. The house. You paid for it, but it's in her name. Have you thought about the tax implications? What do you mean? You essentially gave her a house worth, what, $300,000? The purchase price was $250,000, but with the market, it's probably worth $320,000 now. That's a gift well over the annual gift tax exclusion. Did you file a gift tax return? I stared at her. I didn't know I needed to. Anything over $15,000 given to one person in a year requires reporting to the IRS. You don't necessarily owe taxes. There's a lifetime exemption, but you're supposed to file the form. If you didn't, you could face penalties. So on top of everything else, I might owe the IRS money for the privilege of being defrauded. Perfect. I'll need to consult a tax attorney too, I said flatly. I can refer you to someone. I left Patricia's office with a growing list of things to handle. Police report, filed. Cease support letter, in progress. Tax attorney consultation, scheduled for next week. Credit card fraud disputes, filed with all 3 bureaus. Utility transfers, in process. And underlying all of it, a decision I still had to make. Sue or walk away. That night, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called my best friend from college, Nicole. We'd grown apart over the past few years, my fault mostly. I'd been too busy dealing with Brenda to maintain friendships. Simone? Oh my God, I thought you'd fallen off the planet. I know. I'm sorry. I've been dealing with some stuff. What kind of stuff? I told her everything. The whole story from Dad's death to Brenda's lies to the fraud investigation. Nicole listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Simi, she said finally, you know I love you, right? Yeah. So I can say this, what the hell were you thinking? I laughed even though it wasn't funny. I wasn't. I was just trying to do the right thing. The right thing is taking care of yourself. Not bankrupting yourself for people who don't appreciate it. I know that now. Do you? Because it sounds like you're considering spending another $50,000 to chase money you're never going to see. She stole from me, Nick. She forged my signature, opened credit cards in my name, lied about everything. And she's going to face criminal charges for that, right? The detective said so. That's justice. You don't need to bankrupt yourself further trying to get money back from someone who's probably already spent it. So I just let her keep the house? It's not your house. It never was. You bought it for her, she owns it. You can be mad about that, and you should be, but throwing more money and time at it won't change anything. You know what will change things? Taking that job in Atlanta, saving that $6,000 a month you're not spending on her anymore, and building the life you should have built 3 years ago. I knew she was right. Emotionally, I wanted to fight. Wanted to make Brenda pay, wanted to take back everything, wanted justice beyond criminal charges. But practically, realistically, the fight would cost more than I'd ever recover. When did you get so wise? I asked. I've always been wise. You just stopped calling me for advice. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just promise me you'll stop lighting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. I promise. We talked for another hour about nothing important, about everything. When I hung up, I felt lighter. Nicole was right. Patricia was right. Even that county clerk had been right. Sometimes walking away was the smartest move. I pulled up my laptop and started drafting an email to Patricia. Proceed with the cease support letter. File whatever paperwork you need for me to formally remove myself from any financial connection to Brenda Fletcher. But I won't be pursuing a civil lawsuit. The criminal case is enough. I'm moving on. I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I opened my bank account and looked at my balance. With bonuses from last quarter, I had about $23,000 saved. Not much, considering. But it was mine. And starting next month, I'd be saving $6,000 monthly instead of giving it away. In a year, I'd have $72,000 plus my current savings. In 2 years, $144,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was security. That was a future. I could spend the next year fighting Brenda in court, spending money I didn't have, reliving trauma I needed to heal from. Or I could spend it building something new. The choice was obvious. The cease and desist letter went out on Thursday via certified mail. Patricia called me when the signature confirmation came through. Brenda signed for it at 10:47 this morning, she said. So she's officially been served. The calls are going to start soon. I'm ready. I wasn't really, but I'd prepared as much as I could. I'd changed my phone number and given the new one only to people I trusted. I'd blocked Brenda and her daughters on all social media. I'd even set up a separate email account for anything related to them, so I could check it when I was emotionally prepared rather than getting ambushed by angry messages. The first call came to my old number 2 hours after Brenda signed for the letter. When I checked my voicemail that evening, there were 17 messages. I listened to the first one. You selfish, ungrateful. I deleted it. The second one was from Natasha, Brenda's younger daughter. I don't know what kind of person abandons family like this. After everything Mom did for you after she took you in, delete. They'd already rewritten history. In their version, Brenda had done something for me. Taken me in, somehow, even though I'd been an adult with my own apartment when she married Dad. I didn't listen to the rest. I forwarded them all to Patricia's email, she'd said to document everything, and then deleted them from my phone. The real work was beginning. I had 3.5 weeks before my move to Atlanta, and I needed to tie up every loose end that connected me to Brenda's life. First, the utilities. I'd already requested disconnection on most of them, but the power company required Brenda to open a new account before they'd close mine. I'd given them the deadline, end of the month, and told them that after that date, if the account wasn't transferred, they should disconnect service. Not my problem if Brenda ended up without power. The water company had similar policies. The gas company, the trash service, the internet provider, All of them required her to establish new accounts. I gave them all the same deadline. Second, the property taxes. I met with a tax attorney who confirmed what the county clerk had told me. I had no obligation to pay them. They were Brenda's responsibility as the property owner. If she didn't pay, eventually the county would place a lien. If the lien went unpaid long enough, they'd hold a tax sale. Could I buy the lien at that sale? I asked. The attorney nodded. Yes. You'd pay the back taxes plus penalties and fees. Then Brenda would have a redemption period, usually 2 years, to pay you back with interest. If she doesn't, you can file for a tax deed and potentially take ownership of the property. How much interest? 18% annually in this state. I did the math. If Brenda didn't pay this year's taxes, about $11,500, and I bought the lien, she'd owe me roughly $13,570 after 1 year, $16,013 after 2. And if she still didn't pay, I could take the house. It was a long game. Maybe too long. But I filed the idea away. Third, my new life. I'd accepted the Atlanta job and now I needed to prepare for it. I gave notice at my current position. My manager was disappointed but understanding. I started looking at apartments in Atlanta, focusing on areas with good schools even though I didn't have kids. Investment for the future, I told myself. Places that would hold value. I found a 2-bedroom apartment in a building with a gym and a rooftop deck. Rent was $2,200 a month. More than my current place, but I could afford it now that I wasn't supporting Brenda. I signed a lease to start on the 1st of next month. Then I started the purge. 3 years of living small had left me with surprisingly few possessions. I could pack my entire life into a small moving truck. I sold furniture I didn't need, donated clothes, threw away paperwork from the years of managing Brenda's bills. Each bag I took to donation was like shedding weight. Each document I shredded was closing a door. Detective Reeves called with an update on the investigation. We interviewed Brenda Fletcher and her daughters. They denied everything, of course. Said you're lying, that you gave them permission to use your information, that the credit cards were your idea. You believe them? No. The evidence is too clear. We've submitted everything to the DA. They'll decide about charges in the next few weeks. What happens if they press charges? Arrest warrants, court dates. Depending on what they're charged with, they could be looking at significant jail time. Especially Brenda, the life insurance fraud is a felony. Jail time. I tried to imagine Brenda in jail and couldn't. It seemed too harsh even after everything. Then I remembered her voice on the phone. She brings nothing but headaches. Maybe jail time wasn't harsh enough. Fourth, my finances. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Brenda had no connection to. I transferred everything. I also opened a high-yield savings account and set up automatic transfers, $2,000 every paycheck. Money I would have spent on Brenda was now going to my future. I also met with a financial advisor for the first time in my life. She reviewed my situation and helped me create an actual plan. Emergency fund, 6 months of expenses. Retirement, max out my 401k contributions. Investments, diversified portfolio of index funds. You're starting from behind, she said, but you're still young enough to recover. If you're disciplined, you could retire comfortably. Discipline. That had never been my problem. I was plenty disciplined. I just hadn't been disciplined for my own benefit. Fifth, therapy. Nicole had suggested it and she was right. I needed to talk to someone about why I'd let myself be used like this. Why I'd sacrificed my own life for people who didn't care about me. The therapist's name was Dr. Harrison. She was young, maybe early 40s, with a direct manner I appreciated. You were groomed, she said in our second session. Not in the usual sense, but Brenda absolutely groomed you. She identified your guilt about your father, your desire to honor him, your caretaking tendencies. Then she exploited all of it. I should have seen it. What? You were grieving. You were vulnerable. And she was convincing. Abusers usually are. She wasn't abusing me. She was just using me. Financial abuse is abuse. Emotional manipulation is abuse. What she did to you over 3 years. That was absolutely abuse. It was strange to hear it framed that way. I'd thought of myself as foolish, naive, too generous. Not as someone who'd been abused. But Dr. Harrison was right. Brenda had systematically taken advantage of my grief and guilt, had isolated me from my resources and my own dreams, had made me feel obligated to support her. The important thing now, Dr. Harrison said, is to make sure you don't fall into this pattern again. To recognize what healthy relationships look like. To know your worth. We worked on that over the next few weeks, on setting boundaries, on recognizing manipulation, on the difference between helping someone and being used by someone. It was harder than I expected. I'd spent so much of my life being the person who helped, who fixed things, who took care of others. Learning to put myself first felt selfish, uncomfortable, but necessary. On moving day, I packed the last box into the truck and stood in my empty apartment for a moment. For years I'd lived here. 4 years of working long hours, missing out on life, pouring everything into people who didn't deserve it. I didn't feel sad to leave. I felt free. The drive to Atlanta took 8 hours. I listened to podcasts about financial independence, about career advancement, about building the life you want instead of the life you've settled for. When I pulled up to my new apartment building, tall, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a doorman in the lobby, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. This was my life now. My apartment. My job. My future. Nobody else's. I'd been in Atlanta for 6 weeks when Detective Reeves called. The DA had filed charges against Brenda and both of her daughters. Felony fraud, identity theft, forgery, grand theft. Arrest warrants had been issued. They're scheduled to turn themselves in tomorrow, Reeves said. Their lawyer worked out a deal for that. Otherwise, we'd have sent officers to pick them up. What happens next? Arraignment probably next week. They'll enter pleas. Then trial if it comes to that. The evidence is strong enough that they'll probably try to negotiate a plea deal. Will I have to testify? Possibly. The DA will be in touch. They'll want to prepare you. After I hung up, I sat on my new couch in my new apartment and tried to process what I was feeling. I'd expected satisfaction, maybe vindication. Instead, I felt hollow. 3 hours later, my new phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Simone. It was Brenda. She'd gotten my new number somehow. We need to talk. No, we don't. Please. Just listen for 1 minute. I know you're angry and you have a right to be, but these charges are going to destroy us. We'll lose everything. The girls could go to prison. Please, you have to drop them. I didn't press charges. The district attorney did. Based on evidence of crimes you committed. It's not how it seems. If you just let me explain. Explain what? How you forged my signature on a life insurance check. How you lied about having no money while collecting rent and Social Security. How you told your friend I brought nothing but headaches after I spent over $400,000 trying to help you. Silence. Then, quietly, you were listening that day? I was standing in the foyer of the house I bought you when you said those things. So yes, I heard. I didn't mean it. I was just venting. Everyone vents about family sometimes. Do they? Do they vent by calling someone useless after that person just paid their property taxes? Do they vent by committing fraud? The credit cards, that was the girls. I didn't know they were doing that. You deposited my life insurance check in your account, Brenda. You forged my signature. That was you, not them. Another long silence. I needed that money. Your father left me in a terrible situation. He left you $87,000 in his retirement account. He left you Social Security benefits. He left you a house with no mortgage. You had money. You just wanted more. It wasn't enough. You don't understand how hard it's been. Stop. My voice came out harder than I intended. Just stop. I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear how hard you had it. You lied to me, stole from me, used me for 3 years, and then insulted me behind my back. You don't get to explain that away. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. But please, these charges, they're going to ruin the girls' lives. They're so young. They made bad choices, but they don't deserve to go to prison. They're adults who committed fraud. Actions have consequences. You sound so cold. Is this really who you want to be? Someone who destroys family over money? And there it was. The manipulation. The attempt to make me feel guilty for holding her accountable for her own crimes. You destroyed this family, I said. When you decided I was just a source of money. When you lied and stole and used me. That was you, not me. So that's it? You're just going to let them prosecute us? You're going to send my daughters to jail? I'm going to let the justice system do what it does. If they committed crimes, they should face consequences. I'm not asking the DA to go easy, and I'm not asking them to be harder. Whatever happens, happens. I'll fight this. We'll prove you're lying. I have documentation of everything. Bank records, emails, text messages, recorded phone calls. I have a private investigator's report. I have witnesses. You can fight all you want, but you'll lose. I heard her breathing on the other end. I hope you can live with yourself. I can. Can you? She hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, waiting to feel something. Guilt maybe. Regret. But all I felt was tired. My new phone rang again. This time it was Natasha. "You're really going to do this?" she said when I answered. "You're going to destroy our lives?" "I'm not destroying anything. You did this to yourselves. We needed that money. You have so much and you wouldn't even miss it. Why are you being so selfish?" "I'm selfish." I laughed. "I gave you and your sister over $80,000 for college tuition you didn't need because you had scholarships. You used that money to buy cars and go on vacations while I drove a car with 200,000 miles. I'm selfish. You offered. We didn't ask you to pay for college. Your mother told me you needed it. She lied. And you both knew she lied and said nothing. We didn't think you'd find out. The honesty of it stunned me. She wasn't even pretending they didn't know. So you're just admitting it? What does it matter now? You've already ruined everything. Mom's going to jail. We might go to jail. We'll have criminal records. Our lives are over. You opened credit cards in my name. You spent $40,000 that I now have to fight to remove from my credit report. You committed crimes. This isn't me ruining your lives. This is consequences. You could tell the DA you don't want to press charges. Already told your mother, I didn't press charges. The state did. I can't drop them even if I wanted to. Which I don't. Why do you hate us so much? I don't hate you. I just don't care about you anymore. There's a difference. She started crying. Please, Simone. Please. My mom made mistakes, but she's not a bad person. We're not bad people. We're family. You're not my family. You're people who used me and discarded me. Family doesn't do that. Your dad would be ashamed of you. That was the line too far. Don't you dare, I said, voice shaking. Don't you dare use my father to manipulate me. He would be ashamed of what you all did to his daughter. He would be horrified that his wife stole from me and lied to me and spent years using me. So don't talk to me about what he'd think. I hung up and blocked the number immediately. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But I'd done it. I'd stood up to them. I'd said everything I needed to say. And I hadn't apologized. Hadn't backed down. Hadn't let them make me feel guilty for their own actions. Dr. Harrison would be proud. The DA called 2 days later. Her name was Renee Walsh and she had a no-nonsense voice that I immediately liked. I've reviewed your case, she said. It's solid. Very solid. The defendant's attorney has reached out about a plea deal. What kind of deal? They want to plead to lesser charges in exchange for probation and restitution. No jail time. What do you think? I think we could win at trial. The evidence is overwhelming. But trials are expensive, time-consuming, and there's always a risk. A plea deal guarantees a conviction and gets you restitution faster. How much restitution? We could push for the full amount of the fraudulent debt, the $100,000 life insurance money plus the $41,000 in credit card fraud. They'd have to pay it back over time. Over how much time? That's negotiable. Could be 5 years, could be 10. Depends on their financial situation. They'll never pay it back. Probably not in full. But even partial restitution is better than nothing. And the conviction goes on their record either way. I thought about it. A trial would mean seeing Brenda again, being questioned by her lawyer, reliving everything in public. A plea deal would mean closure faster. What do you recommend? Take the deal. Get the conviction, get whatever restitution you can, and move on. Trials are emotionally draining. From what I've seen in your case, you've already been through enough. Okay. Take the deal. 2 weeks later, Brenda and her daughters stood in a courtroom and pleaded guilty to fraud and identity theft. They were sentenced to 5 years of probation and ordered to pay restitution of $141,000, the full amount they'd taken or defrauded. I wasn't there. I didn't want to be. The DA called me after with the news. They'll make monthly payments, she said. We'll monitor it. If they don't pay, their probation could be revoked. Do you think they'll pay? Some of it, probably. All of it? Unlikely. But you have a legal judgment now. That's enforceable in other ways too. Wage garnishment, bank levies, eventually property liens. A property lien. That house I'd bought. If they didn't pay, I could potentially put a lien on it and force a sale. Poetic justice. Thank you, I said. For everything. You did the hard part. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment, my beautiful, bright apartment with its view of the city, and thought about what came next. I had a conviction. I had a legal judgment. I had my new life in Atlanta. And I had a future that was finally, completely my own. The Atlanta office was everything my old territory wasn't. modern, organized, full of people who actually cared about their work. As director of regional sales, I oversaw 15 representatives across 3 states. It was more responsibility than I'd ever had, and I loved it. My first week, I met with each rep individually, learned their territories, their challenges, their goals. By the end of the month, I'd restructured our approach, implemented new training programs, and increased our team's closing rate by 12%. My boss, a sharp woman named Claudette who'd built the southern region from nothing, called me into her office after my first quarterly report. "I knew you were good," she said, looking at my numbers. "I didn't know you were this good. I just like solving problems." "Well, keep solving them. You've got a future here. I'm talking VP track if you keep this up." VP track. I'd never even considered executive positions before. I'd been too busy surviving, too focused on making enough money to support Brenda, too exhausted to think about career advancement. Now, suddenly, I could think about it, could plan for it, could work toward it. It felt strange at first, having that much energy for my own life. I'd spent so long being tired, being stretched thin, being broke despite making good money. Now I had money in my savings account. I had time on weekends. I had mental space to think about things other than bills and obligations. I bought furniture for my apartment. Real furniture, not secondhand stuff from Craigslist. A couch that didn't sag. A bed frame that wasn't metal. A dining table where I could host people. I joined a gym and actually went 3 times a week every week. I started feeling stronger, healthier. I made friends. Other women in my building, people from work, members of a book club I joined on a whim. Real friends who invited me places and meant it, who called just to talk, who didn't want anything from me except my company. And I started dating. His name was Jerome. He was the hospital administrator for one of my biggest clients. We'd met during a negotiation over a pharmaceutical contract. He was tall with an easy smile and a kindness that felt genuine. After our 3rd meeting, he asked if I'd like to get coffee sometime. Not business coffee. Real coffee. I'd said yes before I could overthink it. We went to a place near the hospital, a tiny cafe with good espresso and terrible pastries. We talked for 2 hours. About work at first, then about life. He'd grown up in Atlanta, had 2 sisters he was close with, loved old movies and terrible puns. "What about you?" he asked. "What's your story?" I gave him the abbreviated version. The version that didn't include Brenda or fraud or the years of financial abuse. Just pharmaceutical sales, new to Atlanta, building a life. "Why Atlanta?" he asked. "New start," I said. "Sometimes you need to leave everything behind and begin again." He nodded like he understood. "I did that once. Moved to Chicago for a job, thought it would be perfect. Lasted 6 months before I realized home was here. Sometimes you have to leave to figure out where you belong." "And where do you belong?" "Here. In Atlanta. Near family. Working in healthcare." "Maybe," he smiled, "having coffee with interesting women who just moved to town." I laughed. Felt good to laugh. Easy. We dated for 6 weeks before I told him about Brenda. We were at his apartment, watching a movie neither of us was paying attention to, when he asked about my family. "It's complicated," I said. "Most families are." So I told him. Not everything but enough. My father's death. Brenda's lies. The money I'd given away. The fraud conviction. The reason I'd moved to Atlanta. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "That's a lot," he said finally. "Yeah. How are you doing with it?" Not, "Why did you do that?" or, "How could you be so naive?" Just, "How are you doing?" "Better," I said. "Some days are harder than others. But I'm in therapy. I'm rebuilding. I'm learning to trust my own judgment again." "Good." He took my hand. "You seem like someone who's figured out how to be strong without being hard." "That's not easy." I looked at him. "Thank you for not judging me." "Why would I judge you? You were taken advantage of by people you trusted. That's not a character flaw. That's just life being cruel sometimes." It was the right thing to say. Exactly the right thing. 3 months into my new life, I'd saved $18,000. $18,000 in 3 months. It was more than I'd managed to save in years when I was supporting Brenda. I looked at my budget and realized I could do more. I started putting away $2,500 monthly. By the end of the year, I'd have $50,000 saved. In 2 years, $100,000. That was a down payment on a house. A real house. Not a gift for someone else. Mine. I started looking at townhouses online. Just browsing at first, getting a sense of what was available. Then seriously with a realtor Jerome recommended. "You'll want something in a good school district," she said. Even if you don't have kids now, resale value is better. We looked at 6 properties. The 7th one I walked in and knew. It was a 3-bedroom townhouse in a neighborhood full of young families. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, a small backyard with space for a garden, and a price that, with my down payment, would give me a mortgage of $2,100 a month, less than I'd been spending on Brenda's utilities alone. I'll take it, I said. Don't you want to think about it? No. This is the one. I put in an offer that day. It was accepted by morning. 6 weeks later, I stood in the empty living room of my townhouse, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. I'd done this, me, with money I'd earned and saved, with my own credit, my own income, my own future. Nobody could take this from me. Nobody could say I didn't deserve it. Nobody could call it a gift or a charity or anything other than what it was. Mine. Jerome helped me move in. So did some friends from work. We ate pizza on the floor of my empty living room and laughed about nothing important. That night, after everyone left, I sat on my new couch, delivered that afternoon, and looked around. I had a home. A real home. A job I loved. A bank account that was growing instead of shrinking. Friends who cared about me for who I was, not what I could give them. A boyfriend who was kind and supportive and didn't need anything from me except my time. I had my life back. No, that wasn't right. I'd never had this life before. This was new. This was better. This was who I was supposed to be all along. The restitution payments started coming in 3 months after the conviction. $500 monthly from Brenda, deposited into an account the DA's office managed. It wasn't much. At that rate, it would take 23 years to pay back the full amount, but it was something. I didn't spend it. I put it in a separate savings account and labeled it Justice Fund. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I'd figure it out. Work continued to go well. By my 6-month mark, my team led the region in sales. Claudette promoted me to senior director and gave me a raise that brought my salary to $195,000. With bonuses, I'd clear $230,000 that year. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making. More than I knew what to do with. Dr. Harrison helped me process the guilt I felt about having money. You earned it, she said. You worked hard for it. You're allowed to enjoy it. But I feel guilty spending it on myself. That's the conditioning from your relationship with Brenda. She made you feel like your money wasn't yours, like you owed it to others. You don't. Your money is yours to spend, save, invest, or give away as you see fit. The key word there is you. I started spending some of it. Not frivolously, but on things that improved my life. A new car. Nothing fancy, just reliable and comfortable for my territory drives. Professional clothes that fit well and made me feel confident. A vacation to Mexico with Jerome, where we sat on beaches and ate good food and didn't talk about work. But I also started giving again. Carefully this time. Thoughtfully. I found a nonprofit called Second Chance Financial, which helped young women recover from financial abuse. They offered free financial counseling, legal assistance, and support groups. Their services were exactly what I could have used during my years with Brenda. I donated $10,000 and volunteered to be a mentor. The first woman I worked with was 26. Recently escaped from a relationship where her boyfriend had controlled all her money, opened credit cards in her name, and left her with $65,000 in debt she didn't accrue. I don't know how to fix this, she said in our first meeting. I don't even know where to start. I showed her where to start. We filed police reports together. Disputed the fraudulent charges. Created a budget. Opened a new bank account her ex didn't know about. Built a plan for her to save enough to move out of her friend's couch and into her own place. How did you learn all this? She asked. The hard way, I said. But you don't have to. That's why I'm here. Helping her felt different than helping Brenda had. This was real help. Empowering someone to take control of their life, not enabling dependency. This was building someone up instead of being torn down. Over the next 6 months, I mentored 3 more women. Each with different stories, but all involving financial manipulation, stolen money, destroyed credit, broken trust. You're good at this, the nonprofit director told me. Have you ever considered doing it professionally? Like as a job? We're looking for a program coordinator. Someone to manage the mentorship program, recruit volunteers, develop curriculum. It's a big job, but you'd be great at it. I have a full-time job. I know. But think about it. You could make a real difference here. I did think about it. But I wasn't ready to leave my pharmaceutical career. Not yet. Maybe someday. For now, I could help in my spare time, and that was enough. Jerome and I celebrated our 1-year anniversary at the restaurant where we'd had our first real date. He'd become a fixture in my life, steady, supportive, present. We spent weekends at each other's places, took turns cooking dinner, watched bad movies and pretended we weren't falling asleep. "I love you," he said over dessert. It was the first time either of us had said it. I looked at him, this good, kind man who'd been patient with my healing, who'd never pushed, who'd just been there. "I love you too," I said. And I meant it. Not the desperate, fearful love I'd felt when I was younger. Not the obligated love I'd given Brenda out of guilt. Real love. Chosen love. The kind that made me better instead of smaller. 2 weeks later he asked me to move in with him. "Not because of money," he said quickly. "Not for practical reasons. I want to share my life with you. Actually share it. Every day, not just weekends." I thought about it. About giving up my townhouse that I'd worked so hard for. About combining lives, sharing space, trusting someone that much. "Can I keep my townhouse?" I asked. "Rent it out, maybe? As an investment?" "Of course. I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm just asking you to add something. Add me. Add, not subtract. Build together, not sacrifice." "Okay," I said. "Yes. Let's do it." We moved in together 3 months later. I rented my townhouse to a young couple who'd just gotten married. They reminded me of who I might have been, if things had been different. I kept the property in my name, hired a management company to handle repairs, and watched my equity grow. Meanwhile, the restitution payments kept coming. $500 a month from Brenda, now totaling $6,000 in the Justice Fund. I still wasn't sure what to do with it, but I kept saving it. Then one day, scrolling through social media, I saw a post from Nicole. She'd started a scholarship fund for first-generation college students at our alma mater. "Too many brilliant kids can't afford college," she'd written. "Let's change that." I called her that night. "Tell me about your scholarship fund." She explained, "Full-ride scholarships for students who were the first in their families to attend college. Kids like we were," she said, "who work hard but don't have safety nets. How much does it cost to fund one scholarship? $100,000 for a 4-year ride. But any amount helps. We can do partial scholarships too." I thought about the Justice Fund. About the restitution money that kept arriving from Brenda. About turning something ugly into something beautiful. "I'll match whatever's in the fund each year," I said. "Every dollar Brenda pays back, I'll match for the scholarship." "Simone, that's amazing. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. It's the best use I can think of for that money. Let her fraud pay for someone's education. Someone who actually needs it and will appreciate it." Nicole laughed. "That's perfect. Poetic even." The scholarship was established that spring. The Second Chance Scholarship, in honor of the nonprofit I volunteered with. The first recipient was a girl from rural Georgia, first generation, brilliant in chemistry. She cried when she found out. "This changes everything," she said at the award ceremony. "I was going to have to drop out. Now I can stay. I can finish. I can become a pharmacist." I thought about the $80,000 I'd given to Brenda's daughters for tuition they didn't need. Money that had gone to vacations and cars and clothes. Now, restitution money from that same family would help kids who actually needed it. Kids who would use it well. Kids who would change their lives with it. That felt like justice. Real justice. Better than any courtroom conviction. The housewarming party was Jerome's idea. "You have this beautiful place now," he said. "Let's fill it with people who actually care about you." So we did. The guest list was small but meaningful. Nicole and her wife. Claudette and her husband. My therapist, Dr. Harrison. The nonprofit director and 2 of the women I'd mentored. Jerome's sisters and their kids. My realtor who'd found my townhouse, still rented out, still building equity. I cooked for days. Made a spread that would have cost me thousands when I was supporting Brenda. Now it was just dinner. For friends. For family. The family I'd chosen instead of the family I'd tried to buy. "This place is incredible," Nicole said, walking through the rooms. "Look at you. Look at this life you built." "We built," I corrected, gesturing to Jerome. "Together." "Okay, but you did the hard part. You left. You started over. You chose yourself." She was right. That had been the hard part. Not the financial recovery, that was just time and discipline. The hard part was deciding I deserved better. Deciding I was worth investing in. Deciding that choosing myself wasn't selfish. Midway through the party, my phone dinged with an email notification. I almost ignored it. I'd gotten good at not checking my phone constantly, but something made me look. The sender was Natasha, Brenda's younger daughter. The subject line, "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I opened it. "Simone." I know you probably won't read this. I wouldn't blame you if you deleted it without looking. But I wanted to try anyway. I've been in therapy since the conviction. Court ordered at first, but I kept going even after I met the requirement. I've been working on understanding why I did what I did. Why I thought it was okay to steal from you. Why I felt entitled to your money. The truth is, I don't have a good answer. My therapist says it was learned behavior, watching my mom manipulate your dad and then you, learning that's how you get what you need from people. She says I was young and impressionable and didn't know better. But I was old enough to know stealing was wrong. Old enough to know lying was wrong. I just didn't care because it benefited me. I can't undo what I did. I can't give you back those years or that money. But I want you to know I'm trying to be better. I dropped out of school. I couldn't face going back on scholarship when I'd taken tuition money from you. I got a job. I'm paying my restitution. It's only $200 a month because I don't make much, but I'm paying it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that what you did, pressing charges, holding us accountable, it changed my life. Not in a bad way. In a way I needed. I hope you're happy. I hope you built the life you wanted. You deserve that. Natasha. I read it twice. Then I put my phone away without responding. I didn't owe her a response. Didn't owe her forgiveness or absolution or acknowledgement. Her growth was her journey. Her healing was her responsibility. But I was glad she was trying. Glad she was paying her restitution. Glad that maybe, in some small way, holding her accountable had helped her become a better person. That was enough. Jerome found me in the kitchen a few minutes later. Everything okay? Yeah. I smiled. Everything's really okay. The party went late. People stayed, talked, laughed. It was the kind of gathering I'd imagined having someday but never quite believed would happen. The kind where everyone actually wanted to be there. Where nobody was counting the cost of the food or judging the wine or thinking about what they could get from me. They were just there. Because they liked me. Because they were happy for me. Because we were building something together, community, connection, chosen family. After everyone left, Jerome and I cleaned up together. He washed dishes while I put away food. We moved around each other easily, comfortably, like we'd been doing this for years instead of months. That was nice, he said. Really nice. It was. I dried a plate and set it in the cabinet. Thank you for suggesting it. Thank you for letting me be part of your life. He turned to look at me. I know it took courage to open up again after everything you went through. I'm grateful you chose me. I set down the dish towel and went to him. I'm grateful you chose me too. Later, lying in bed, I thought about the past year. About everything that had changed. Everything I'd learned. I'd learned that you can't help people who don't want help. That you can't buy love or loyalty. That giving until you're empty doesn't make you noble, it just makes you empty. I'd learned that boundaries aren't selfish. That saying no doesn't make you cruel. That walking away can be an act of self-respect instead of selfishness. I'd learned that I was worth investing in. That my dreams mattered. That I deserved to prioritize my own life. Most importantly, I'd learned that it was never too late to start over. To choose differently. To build the life I wanted instead of the life others demanded. My phone buzzed again. Another email. This time from the nonprofit. Your match donation just came through, $7,200 total with Brenda's payments and your match. The Second Chance Scholarship Fund is growing. We're on track to fund 2 full rides within 3 years. Thank you for making this possible. I smiled in the dark. $7,200 of Brenda's restitution money turned into opportunity for students who needed it. Money that had been stolen from me, now returned and redirected toward good. That was the ending I'd needed. Not revenge exactly. Not even justice in the traditional sense. Just balance, restoration. Taking something ugly and transforming it into something beautiful. I closed my email and set my phone aside. Tomorrow I'd go to work, lead my team, close deals. Tomorrow I'd have coffee with one of my ments and help her build her budget. Tomorrow I'd come home to Jerome and this life we were building together. Tomorrow and the day after and all the days after that. Because I'd finally learned the most important lesson. The best way to move forward from betrayal isn't to destroy the people who hurt you. It's to build a life so good they become irrelevant. And that's exactly what I'd done.